Want to know what it's like to get treatment for obesity? Back in February, I gave a presentation to a room full of physician assistant students at A.T. Still University. This time, I brought my patients with me. I wanted them to tell their story, what it's like and how it can change your life. They stood in front of this room full of students and told their story, some through tears and a lot through heavy emotion. They've been told their whole lives that they need to work harder, that they're not doing enough, that they're not doing it right. But they were doing everything they could. Finally, they're getting real treatment, and finally, they're starting to get better. We couldn't record the live presentation, so we decided to all get together and recreate it in a room. So here's a presentation for you this week. Next week, I sat down with my patients, and we had a discussion about what it was really like, so you can hear their stories firsthand. I hope you enjoy it. All right, well, thanks for coming, you guys. It's great to have my patients with me here, and we've had quite a journey, haven't we? You guys have all come a long ways and still struggling with all sorts of stuff that you're dealing with, but the goal is to get better. So this is from a presentation that I gave at A.T. Still University, and you guys were all there. It was February 9th. For the physician assistant students. So I wanted to give this so that we could post it online and show what it looks like to do an obesity medicine practice and what it looks like for patient care and what you guys get to go through here. So it's really the basis for why I'm doing this, actually. So I asked the crowd, who here is hungry right now? Who's thinking of their next meal? Who's planning out dinner? And who does that constantly throughout the day?
I think they all raised their hands.
And they all raised their hands pretty much. Some of them didn't. But this differentiates between obesity and non-obesity. It's the biological drive to constantly eat. And there's so many factors. There's neurohormones, there's all sorts of drives that stimulate that. So we're going to talk about what that means. So the most common challenges that people face are that they gain weight despite putting in effort. You guys have all experienced that. You try to lose weight and you can't, the weight loss resistance. And then you experience stigma and bias. So I see this in terms of healthcare providers not offering real care or telling you to work harder, work harder, work harder when you're already doing the best you can. That's a form of stigma and bias. And then you have conditions that really don't respond well to normal therapy like lipedema. And so you end up not having the same response as most people. So there's lots of root causes. There's hormones, there's nerve signals, there's genetics, there's the food environment that we live in, depending on what food we have available to us, whether it's food that we can't afford or food that's just available and we don't have other food available. The physiology plays a huge role. And then our family environment, our social environment, all those things play a role. So I call these healthcare's dirty little secrets. Secret number one, obesity causes the vast majority of diabetes. Nobody tells people that. Obesity is the root cause of that. It causes almost 80% of cases of high blood pressure. It's the root cause of about half the cases of high cholesterol. And then heart attacks and strokes, it's a major driver of that. 80% of people who have a heart attack or stroke have obesity. So that's the secret. We got to get that out. There's a couple interesting associated conditions with obesity. Women are the only people who get lipedema. So you get abnormal fat distribution in your legs, in your arms, it goes down to your wrists, it goes down to your ankles, It could be different in people just going down to your knees or such. Here's some pictures that illustrate this. But it's painful, and it's rarely recognized as a disease. And why it matters, it actually causes problems with exercising, it's resistant to weight loss, and the number one reason it matters is that it's treatable. Nobody talks about this. It is treatable with special liposuction techniques. Another interesting cause is Cushing syndrome. So we've been finding a lot of Cushing syndrome in our practice. You guys know about this. It's autonomous secretion, so it's just on an automatic. It's not based on the feedback and the sensor system that's currently in the body. It just forms. So more and more cortisol. And it really has a severe effect on the metabolism and on the mental function too. And it's actually rarely diagnosed. So this is changing a little bit though. So cardiovascular disease. One of my main goals is preventing something like this from happening. So Clarence, we're going to talk to you about the heart attack and your bypass surgery and the fact that we didn't get to you years and years ago to be able to prevent this. And I'm sorry about that. But that's my goal for everybody else that we can get to now before they even realize that this is going to become a problem. Obesity causes diabetes, it causes high blood pressure, it causes high cholesterol. These are all the risk factors for heart attacks. Sonja, your story is really great. So, and you've had actually surprising success with treatment. It's amazing. So, when you did your initial weight loss efforts, you tried and tried and tried for weight loss, and you lost some and hit your plateau. And you were doing reverse crunches. You were in such good shape. You worked with the Gold's Gym boot camp instructor. He was flogging you the whole time. And you even made the joke, or he even made the joke, it was totally a joke. You should try the crack cocaine diet. Nothing's working on you. It was totally a joke. But it illustrated the fact that you were stuck. And you have lipedema, the leg fat tissue is not coming off, and same with the arms. And it led to a hip replacement, it led to chronic pain, and really nobody gave you a treatment option through all these years. And you know, we're in a better place now with treatment options actually, but that's the point here, is that people need treatment. And then Tim Marie, an excellent story. You've been on my Instagram lately. We've been posting from our original podcast that you had lost 115 pounds after being diagnosed with Cushing syndrome and starting treatment. And now you're up to 135 pounds lost. And you, you had obesity. It led to diabetes. Your diabetes was terrible. It landed you in the hospital with infections. And you've even had other complications from diabetes. But you almost couldn't go to work because you were so tired and washed out. So that's Cushing syndrome driving all of these factors. And then we have Clarence. Thank you for joining us, Clarence. Clarence and I sometimes hit the golf course together with my 12-year-old. And Clarence just had a heart attack and a bypass surgery. And just before that, before we were even able to start treatment, we diagnosed you with full-blown Cushing syndrome. And we really, for a couple of years, we've missed the opportunity to get that treatment started. So our goal is to do that on more and more people and continue treatment with you. You were talking earlier about how when you started treatment for Cushing syndrome, you're just into it the first couple months, but have had a significant improvement in even your inflammatory back pain. And that's actually amazing that some of that stuff is getting better when really no other medicines work that well for this condition. So during our interaction, we'll talk more about all of your cases and talk about what it was like to go through all that. So think about what you want to talk to us about with that. So you get the bias and the stigma, and I even talk about this as a form of gaslighting. So you're a psychiatrist, you can either refute or validate this, but to make people think that they're crazy or that they didn't consider something like it's their fault, that's what we're doing or have done with patients throughout the years. It's your fault for not being able to lose the weight, you need to exercise harder. Well, if you're already exercising at the max, I mean, what more can you do? So gaslighting is actually a pretty traumatic form of emotional abuse. And our patients have gone through this. Impaired mobility. We have people who are in wheelchairs who can't move around. They've had their hips done. Their back's in pain, they can't move. So many things. And then all these complications that come from obesity leading to diabetes, leading to eye problems, or the heart attack, or something else, some complication down the road. And a lot of it stems from obesity, or at least is associated. So some people actually debate whether obesity is a disease. And it is a disease. It is. It causes all of these things that we just talked about, and it's treatable, and it has an underlying physiology and biology that determines how people feel. And so it's a disease just like anything else. High blood pressure. High blood pressure isn't the cause of death for anybody. It causes a downstream effect. You could get an aneurysm and it pops. That's from high blood pressure. You could get, it increases your risk for heart attack, stroke. It increases your risk for eye problems. High blood pressure is the cause, and it's also treatable. And we treat it just like we would any other medical disease. So, obesity is very similar to that. And interestingly, in our medical policies and coverage, there's an exclusion by most plans for obesity. And it's a specific line item. They say medication treatment for obesity is excluded from these plans. Medicare had it until just recently. There's lots of other plans that have had it, and they put it in around the early 2000s because they didn't want to pay for weight loss treatment. They thought it was vanity or something that appearance-wise. But now that we have more understanding and more tools for treatment, this is starting to flip, and we're starting to see that we can actually reduce the downstream effects of obesity. And we're working on improving policy and coverage right now by defining the problem and outlining what the answers could be and how to make those decisions. There's a few myths with obesity. The fact that the myth that metabolism is equal to your hunger. So, you know people who can fill their plate and eat a ton, and they say, oh, they have a high metabolism. Or people who don't eat very much and they have a low metabolism. And it's interesting how the metabolism doesn't actually affect the hunger all that much. And people who have trouble losing weight, it's also not totally related to the metabolism. But the hunger is what controls most of the obesity effects. So we'll talk about that a little bit. The myth that exercise increases metabolism. This is, I don't want anybody to feel bad about this because the metabolism doesn't determine whether you can lose weight or not. But when you exercise, you get more efficient and your metabolism naturally goes down. So we don't talk about metabolism as the root cause of obesity in a lot of cases because we can't tweak it. It's a result of what our bodies are doing. And the myth that weight loss, when you lose the weight, say you come from here to here, that this is a steady state. It is not a steady state. It is a condition that your body recognizes as a starvation position. So we teach people about the set point. Unfortunately, if you gain weight, the set point tends to hold even if you lose weight. And then your body senses that it's below its set point and it triggers you to come back up. And that is the main reason for the weight regain after people lose weight. And so we ask people to come in with the mindset of doing lifelong treatment. And we're working on how to do lifelong treatment. I mean, we haven't been using these new medicines for very long, but I'm hopeful that we can find some other way besides lifelong medication. But right now, we know that most people regain weight after they stop either their diet program or their medication. That weight loss phase is not a steady state. Maintenance is actually harder sometimes, most of the time, than the actual weight loss phase. So I talked about treatment resistance with the set point. The fact that your metabolism naturally comes down when you get in better shape, that's your body adapting, and you're not losing weight because your body has adapted. So that's one of the problems or one of the reasons with the limitations with exercise for weight loss. And then treatment with medications or surgery sometimes is needed to help people get past those plateaus. So this is a really interesting medical study. Clarence, this specifically relates to you because this is someone who's had a heart attack, and the risk of another heart attack over about 5 years is 8%. And with treatment, with a specific medication, specifically semaglutide, that risk reduced to 6.5%, which is a 20% reduction. So these medications are actually preventing recurrences. This study is on people who had prediabetes, and they followed them for 3 years to see how many people developed diabetes. So I don't know if you know this, but people who have prediabetes commonly go up the curve and develop diabetes. So we have this 20% incidence right here of people developing diabetes from prediabetes. Look at this line down here with treatment with Zepbound, which is tirzepatide. It's almost zero. The reduction in people getting diabetes was 94%. You imagine what it would be like if we could eradicate diabetes. When almost all of the diabetes cases, type 2, are related to obesity. if we could treat the obesity up front, we've prevented millions of cases of diabetes before it wreaks havoc. And you guys know what this does to somebody. So let's talk about that when we get together here. So what it looks like in Arizona, about 30% of people have obesity, and that's actually lower than a lot of states, so good job everybody. In the Medicaid population, it's higher, 46% of people. That's about 1.5 million. And it's a major driver of healthcare costs. We're doing an analysis right now with the legislature. And with the testimonies that have come forward in this process, we found that people with diabetes and obesity cost the state health plan, Medicaid, 3 times more than people without those conditions. That's a huge cost when you add it all up with all these people who have diabetes and obesity. And so we're trying to figure out how to prevent that and what the best prevention looks like. But we know that we need treatment. We can't just stand by and do nothing. So now we have new treatments, but we still have these old policies from 25 years ago. The older medicines really didn't reduce CV disease, which is cardiovascular, or sleep apnea, which we didn't talk about yet, and they didn't prevent diabetes all that much. They were really only used for weight loss. So we've been talking about this in terms of weight loss for the last 60 years or 100 years, however long we've been treating people with obesity, but it's solely been focused on weight loss. And now we're trying to focus on reducing heart attacks and strokes and diabetes and other downstream effects. It's not just cosmetic, and it's just an outdated model. So what's changing? I'm working as the Arizona Obesity Organization with the legislature as much as I can, and writing up this paper through our process of analyzing this data to make a case for covering treatment for obesity in our population. We are making some progress here. We're hoping to have an obesity advisory committee sometime this year that we can make some recommendations to the legislature and provide some policy changes. And then Medicare just changed their policy. I don't know if you guys heard about this. I talked to you about this, Sonja. July 1st, they're going to cover obesity treatment for people with prediabetes, sleep apnea, heart disease, fatty liver with damage, and several other medical conditions. Or they're going to cover it for everybody with a BMI over 35. That includes a ton more people. What a huge breakthrough. And we're finally starting to move the needle into treating people who need to be treated. So let's chat about your stuff, and then we'll get some more information or just get some more insight in what it's really like to live with this.